So today we'll talk about soil for farms. So as a part of Srila Prabhupada's movement, we need to think about how to raise food and grain on farms. So the topic of discussion that came a little earlier is around soil. So soil is 20 to 30% air, 20 to 30% water, 45% minerals, at least 5% organic matter. So, and then you'll have living beings like microbes, fauna, roots, non-living being, which is humus and detritus. So basically, this is the composition of soil. But what's happening in the farm in Texas is it is like 80 to 90% clay. So there is no air between the soil particles. There is hardly any water, unlike in the state of Washington. So the soil becomes very hard. So how do your roots penetrate? They cannot penetrate, right? So we have to add organic matter to it so that we can make it into soil. So clay has to be converted into soil in order to do any kind of crops, right? So you need a pore structure and clay aggregation. So these are all like, because this is a very top college, they'll have all these acronyms and things like that. CHONPS, that is the structure. So when you have the proper structure, then you retain the nutrients like cations, anions and cations. You must have learned in your high school chemistry. So what happens with this is there is a carbon cycle that we have to endure in order to grow these crops properly. So what is carbon cycle? The atmosphere carbon, has to be absorbed in form of carbon and put into ocean. Oceans and lakes absorb most of the carbon. Otherwise, what happens as the carbon dioxide increases, we will be in big time trouble later on. So increase in carbon dioxide will cause other problems for us. Carbon dioxide comes from what? What does carbon dioxide come from, Anisha? You must be learning in school.
From trees.
From trees. Who said that? Oxygen comes from trees. Carbon dioxide comes. When you drive your car, you are producing carbon dioxide. When you run a machine or a factory, you're producing carbon dioxide. Right? Trees are very good people. They give us oxygen. They take carbon dioxide and they give us oxygen. So what is photosynthesis, Anisha?
I don't think I learned that yet.
Really? I think you learn more in my class than in your school. Okay. So there is chlorophyll in plants and trees. When sunlight falls onto this plants, it produces oxygen. Produces oxygen, which is useful for us to survive in this planet. Right? So that's why trees are good. That's why you say green. Our state is called evergreen state because compared to other states, we have a lot of greenery in our state, a lot of trees and plants.
Okay, so is the right way to think about it like photosynthesis is turning like light energy into food?
Yeah, in a way, you can think like that. The chlorophyll in plants is formed by the sun's energy. So again, there are various kinds of soils like alpha-sol, andisol. I don't know all these things. These are all like high-tech information about soils. And then in United States, you have different soil maps. From left to right, you have increasing carbon. And from bottom to top, you have increasing carbon. So you have less carbon in Texas, more carbon in state of Washington, all these northern climes, essentially.
Prabhu, I have a question. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Is more carbon good or less carbon good for the soil?
Carbon is good. Carbon dioxide is bad,
Okay.
right? Carbon
So
is an
organic carbon.
natural latent element, right? So basically, Earth is basically what? Carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, the whole thing called NPK, right?
Yeah.
Nitrogen N, phosphorus P, potassium K. The NPK
Pacific
decides
Northwest
your
is really
agriculture,
good. Right.
right?
So
I
the
mean, it's
Pacific
there in
Northwest
your
is
book
really good
also,
for.
like the book that you purchased, 5 Acres to Independence.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So in 5 acres, we can have an independent life. That's what the book claims. But I would say let's take 10 acres at least, because we are not that efficient, right? We will not use every corner
Right.
of the land. Every inch we will not consume. That fellow was assuming that every inch is, used. But we may not be able to use every inch of the land. So distribute of soil organic carbon as function of depth. So you all know graphs, right? So as depth increases, soil organic carbon increases, right? As the graph shows here, at 100 centimeters depth, you have maybe 3 soil organic carbon grams per kilogram, whatever, grams or kilogram, some units like that. So the graph is going up. So somewhere around depth of, sorry, it is the inverse graph. So somewhere around the depth of 2 centimeters, you have the highest, which is about 32. But as the depth goes deeper, then the soil organic carbon is coming less. So global distribution of terrestrial carbon, inorganic carbon is 31%, subsoil is 38%, topsoil is 13%, like that. So different locations, the carbon is different. So what is organic matter? Cellulose, 45%. Hemicellulose, 18%. Lignin, 20%. Protein, 18%. Starches and sugars, 5%. This is basically chemistry, right? There's nothing to do with what you would assume. Soil means all dirty stuff. Yes, Hari. Okay. Okay, I'm back. So basically, this is like a chemistry class. What is the composition of organic matter? Remember, we said at least 5% should be organic matter, otherwise that soil you cannot grow anything. And then I won't get into this. This is like all the chemical molecular structure, like your 11th grade chemistry. So there is a lot of information that goes into this activity, right? So the priming effect, increase in soil organic matter decomposition rate after fresh organic matter is input to the soil. So as time passes, the decomposition is faster.
Parent is
And-
saying they can see the
What, Mataji? What, Radha Mataji?
oh, sorry, Prabhuji. I will mute it.
Yeah. So you have to add this organic matter. At the start of the class, Sheshdev and I were talking about why it is so difficult to grow in clay as we are struggling in that Texas soil, because there is not enough soil organic matter. So we have to increase the soil organic matter. And again, given this is like a Ivy League college, they go into highly scientific, but you don't need to be highly scientific to grow, right? You just need to make the soil as fertile as possible, adding cow dung, green manure, the one that they talk about in the book that you purchased, Girish. So how do you create green manure? You plant legumes, and then you plant other plants which create a lot of green matter, and then you cut down and then leave it in the soil, and then you mix it with the soil. So when all of that thing composes, it makes the soil more fertile. So first crop will be more or less wasted. And then from second crop onwards, you can harvest and sell. So globally, surface soils have lost 25 to 50% of their carbon over the last 100 to 125 years due to intense cultivation. So carbon is a good thing, but what's happening due to intense cultivation by human beings, we are consuming it at a faster rate than nature can replicate itself. You see percentage organic matter in soil, initially there is less, then it becomes a forest. From forest, then it drops drastically as you consume it in agriculture. So from a few years after cultivation begins, agriculture would have consumed the soil carbon. So the decay of the organic matter is fastest in moist soil. And then cool climates produce soil with high organic matter. So that is why you see in the state of Washington, we have high soil organic matter. It's very, very fertile. Of course, it is cold also. Therefore, we don't go outside and cultivate crops in Washington. In Texas, land is very warm. Nice, we can cultivate. But then the soil is not very fertile. So it is like two extremes. Both are challenging. The other thing is pH factor. pH means acidity, right? So anybody know what is the pH factor when the boundary line between acid and alkali? 7, excellent. Yeah. So if it is below 7, it is acidic, and I think it is above 7 is alkali. So in acidic soils, you cannot grow crops. So you have to make the soil into alkalic, slight alkali, not too much. Again, the other end of the spectrum is also problematic. So Harilas Maharaj bought this $25 tool from Home Depot. So you stick it into the ground, it will tell you what the pH factor is. And now there is one company started by one guy from Andhra in America, in the Redmond area. He came to Harilas Maharaj's farm and he was very appreciative of how they are growing. So his company, what they do is they put IoT sensors throughout the farm, and then they have this whole big data analytics type software. Of course, that's an overkill in my mind, but anyway, he does that. And he's saying that we can measure the pH value of every corner of your land. And then So these are all like the high-tech farmers, right? So they'll say, oh, in the southeast corner, pH value is 6.9. In the northeast corner, the pH value is 7.2, like that. And then they'll say, okay, now let's use some drone technology to deposit some alkalizing minerals on that part of the farm to neutralize it. But that's all humbug in my mind. You can pretty much, with a handheld, you can check the pH in every corner and then do the alkalization process once and get it over with. Right? Anything can be overcomplicated. But this guy is like the CEO of this new company that he started. I think he was former Microsoft or former Amazon. And then the startup bug bit him. So he started his own company. He seems to be doing well. And someday he may go IPO and all that, become very rich and all that. But the point remains that you have to measure the pH value across every corner of your property to determine, because acidic soil, nothing grows. Basically, the roots will die. Acid, think of acid. Like if you drink acid, what will happen to you? And then high salinity, like parts of Houston, for example, the ocean water seeps into the soil. So what does that do? Because of the salt content, you cannot grow anything. I mean, you can grow some marshes, just like you see on coastal United States, you'll see marshes here and there. But that's not eatable, right? Marshland is marshland. You cannot really grow anything there. So again, a lot of chemistry, too much chemistry here. In temperate soil, the average turnover time is 50 years for these microbial organisms to grow and decay. But in tropical and boreal forests, the average turnover times are greater than 1,000 years. Means it takes 1,000 years to form the land. But if you put in artificial fertilizer and over cultivation, you can destroy it in 50 years or 20 years, whatever. Destroying is easy. Creating that ecosystem is very, very difficult. So this is where all the environmentalists come and say, yeah, the world's human population is growing. We are destroying the world. But we are destroying the world not because the population is high, because of bad practices, right? If you think of Earth as Mother Earth, then you will put good practices. Otherwise, you will pretty much abuse her, right, left, and center.
Prabhu, I'm just a little confused. When they say turnover, what does that mean?
Observed mean residence time for several organic compounds. So these organic compounds, to renew, they may take 1,000 years in the natural ecosystem. Things like hexrose, pentrose, saccharides, glucosamine.
So it feels counterintuitive that in a lush tropical forest, the turnover time would be longer relative to temperate soils.
Yeah, temperate soils are weak in terms of fertility, but the tropical forests are very rich, right? So that's what all the people in Chile, the Andean region, they are cutting down these forests and then they are cultivating into agriculture. They are growing soybeans, they're growing all these other things. But the point is the turnover time is pretty long, right? It takes a long time for them to renew again these chemicals.
Understood.
Yeah. Hold on just a minute. So again, there's a lot of theory behind all these things, right? Like various ecosystems, like the century ecosystem model. Maybe it takes 100 years to fix something, right? We'll not get into all that detail. But the general idea is, I was trying to answer this question, how do you make the soil rich? You need organic material. So even sewage waste is organic material. Crop residue, like if you take the previous crop and then take the residue to control it, like that. So this whole organic matter management, you can increase that curve back up. So obviously this professor drew all these diagrams on his board, and then he converted that into this text. So how do you balance the organic matter? You create green manure, conservation tillage, where you return the plant residues back. You don't take away, like a lot of times you'll see in the lands in America, when you drive, you should pay close attention. They will cut the previous crop and they will leave everything on the ground so that it becomes fertilizer. Controlled grazing, like rotational grazing. So 1 acre, you will have the cows eat all the grass for 1 acre. Then you'll go to the 2nd acre. Then you go to the 3rd acre. Then you go to the 4th acre. You don't leave all of your cows in the entire land that you have, because then eating will be uneven. And then how will the soil regenerate? How will the grass again come back up? So you control it segment by segment. And so there should be, like, for example, legumes. Legumes are like peanut, groundnut, those are called legumes. And then in America, there is something called hairy vetch. And then you have grasses like cereal ryegrass. Rye is a grain. You make rye bread out of it. So the rye grass also has a lot of nitrogen that can be introduced into the soil. So after days of killing the cover crop, means basically you cut the cover crop and you just leave it on the ground. Then gradually it decays. And as it's decaying, the nitrogen is released and it becomes a part of the ground ecosystem. So there's a lot of theory behind it. This one is like a little too much for my taste because it is too much chemistry, but you get the idea. So there are things called soil architecture. All this is in that thing that I sent you. So remember, we talked about in the last PowerPoint, 45% should be mineral, 5% should be organic matter, air should be 20 to 30%, water 20 to 30%. So with that in mind, we have to define, and then acidity and alkalinity. So if you know a little bit of high school chemistry, then you are ready to become a farmer, because you need to manage the organic matter, you need to manage the NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Then you need to balance the acidity and alkalinity. So first is stones. Stones are ground to pebbles. Pebbles are ground to sand. Sand is ground to silt, and silt is ground to clay. Of course, Texas land is more volcanic clay. So it just came out of volcanoes thousands, maybe millions of years ago. So sand is like a beach ball. Silt is like frisbee. Clay is like a dime. So you see, clay particles are very small compared to sand particles. Relative sizes, baseball versus frisbee versus dime. So you see sand is big, clay is very, very small. This is from University of Michigan. So what they put is, yeah, this is the main chart that all farmers need to know. Right? Percent clay versus percent silt versus percent sand. So there could be 100% clay, which means there is hardly any silt and hardly any sand. There is 100% sand, hardly any clay and partly any silt like that. So in this triangle, you can decide. So anything is more clay and more silt is called clay. Anything that is less sand and more silt is called silt. And then less clay and more sand is called sand. And anything in middle is like loamy sand, clay loam, like that. So this is the picture I've been seeing for a while now, everywhere on the internet. This is the mapping of how the balance between clay, silt, and sand is.
So what's optimal?
Optimal is you should have less sand and less clay. You should have more of soil. So if it is
Silt.
more silt, it is better. Sand means what happens when you pour water in sand, it will just go everything down, nothing available for roots. Clay means what happens? All the water is
Staying
at
there.
the surface, right? Because it's so tightly packed, the molecules are so tightly packed. So the water won't penetrate into the bottom layer so that you can get water for the roots. So the reality is somewhere in between. And you need organic matter for the nutrients. And also the bugs. So the ecosystem is made out of bugs, right? Now there's small earthworms and different kind of beetles and all that, plus chemicals like NPK, plus organic matter. All these three things, when you combine them, you get into a good combination. Otherwise, it's a bad combination.
Another question. Does they talk about soil renewal? Does that have to be renewed, meaning adding all these nutrients back into the soil every year, every month? Like, how does that happen?
So you are a soil scientist, right? You'll periodically measure the NPK. You'll periodically measure the acidity, acidity or alkalinity. And you will see how the crops are growing. If the crops are not growing, then mother is telling you, earth is telling you, okay, stop, take a break. I don't have enough energy in me. Renew, I need to go through renewal.
Understood. So it's continuous.
Right? So this is like, if you take a piece of soil, if it is clay, you can start making like pots with that on the right side. If it is loamy sand, then it will be like, it will be spreading out. So you have to squeeze the soil, and if it becomes powdery, then it is loamy. If it is clay, then it will become stick. It will stick. Just a little flow chart. So if you make a ribbon, then it is sandy clay loam. If you can make a long ribbon, then it is definitely clay. And if you make a weak ribbon, less than 1 inch long, before it breaks, then it is sandy loam. Right? So again, you don't need a flow chart. Once you're on the ground and you pick up the soil, you touch it, and then you'll know, alright, this is more clay. It is becoming like lumpy. Or this is more soil. It is becoming like it is disintegrating really quickly. So all this is just like any other, just like you learn C++ and Java, you have to learn soil science to become a farmer. And America is the best place for that because you have agricultural universities everywhere. Texas A&M, Agricultural Mechanical University. Before, when all this C++ and on this stuff only came like 40 years ago, right? Prior to that, America was an agricultural country and mechanical country. So there is a lot of good research in America around agriculture. So again, they use all these terms: prismatic, blocky, granular, columnar, single grained. Like here we have single grain soil in the state of Washington. Vertical columns of soil. This you find in lower horizons, so more like Texas, Mexico, like that. So again, spheroidal, plate-like. You'll see some places you'll see this plate-like. If you go to Semami City Hall, behind that, as you are walking down the City Hall, they bought some plate-like mud and put them along the walkway, sidewalks, right? Where they got it from, I don't know, but it is like the plate-like mud. So understanding all these things is very important to being a farmer. Then you can do like be really in an Excel, you can compute the particle density, the bulk density, numerator over denominator, that kind of more chemistry type analysis. This is very important, right? You see this compaction. If you don't do any till, like Sridhar Sham in Dallas is trying to do a no-till farming, then the land after 4 inches is pretty much very compacted, right? So it will be 300 psi, pounds per square inch. Psi means pounds per square inch. But if you plow it, you can go all the way till 16 inches. So you can plow or chisel. Apparently they have some tool called chisel that is mounted to your tractor. Then you have something called disc cutter. Anybody know what a disc cutter is? So this is the PTO shaft that we are buying for our tractor. Disc cutter. Yeah, this is the disc cutter. You must have seen this. I have seen this in the farms many times. You see that disc? Chuck, 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 chuck. It'll cut into the ground. And not cheap, $599 for that little section there, maybe 4 feet wide. So that's a disc cutter. So if you use a disc cutter, compact, it doesn't go that deep. So around the port, little more than the no-till agriculture. But plowing, it totally ruins everything. So that is why now the trend is not to plow the land in America. So what's happening with the grain yield as the mud is more compacted? Is it going up or down? This curve is down. What does it mean? Grain yield is going down in the wet season. In the drying season, it goes up for a while and then it goes down. So actually compact soils are good in the dry season, according to this graph. So in organic matter, there are two kinds. One is living beings like plants and funguses. Plural is fungi. Single-celled organisms like bacteria and algae. And small animals like protozoa, worms, insects. So you need this combination. You cannot just say, oh, I will only have insects. Then all your crops will be devastated. You cannot say, I only want bacteria that has its own problems. So you need a combination of fungus, bacteria, and then these insects. And then there is decomposed matter like humus. It's a colloidal product of bacterial and fungal decay. So bacteria and fungus also die. And when they die, they become humus. So this is a science in itself. You need to have balance between all these things. Otherwise, you cannot grow crops. Most soils today have less than 5% by weight organic material. Main building block is carbon. So organic matter is a rich source of phosphorus P, nitrogen N, sulfur S, and also potassium K. They don't mention that here, but potassium is also there. So soil organic matter that decomposes slowly is called humus. So all this knowledge is required in order to understand how to grow in a very sophisticated way. Anybody can grow, but if you want to have good crop production, then you need to know. So you need micropores to have air and macropores in the soil. A little bit of organic matter, some sand, some silt, some clay. Right now, if you have, instead of this, right now it is what? 10% of clay. If it grows to 70% clay, then it will become like a rock. You have to take your hathoda, you have to take your hammer and break the soil. It will be so hard. So there is a science to it on how to understand soil. It's called soil science. It's a full course. You have to attend for an entire semester to understand what soil is. So that is soil architecture. And then let's see something else. And then so you have these ecosystem under the ground, arthropods like arachnid spiders, myriapods, centipedes. Centipedes means they'll have these 100 legs. They'll be crawling tick, 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 tick on the ground. You must have seen them, right? And then you have these isopods, which are known as pill bugs or potato bugs. So you need all this. So basically take care of the ground ecosystem under. And then you need bacteria and fungus, known as prokaryotic bacteria. There are how much units? Tens, hundreds, thousand, 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, 100 million, 1 billion bacterial cells per gram of soil. One soil has 1 million bacteria, 1 gram of soil. So now you know that souls are almost infinite, right? Coming back to Bhagavad Gita, every living entity has a soul. So in 1 gram of soil, if there are 1 billion bacteria, how many bacteria are there in the entire earth? Huh? Anybody can guess? And how many are there in the entire universe? So that also reminds us that we are very, very small and insignificant. Then there is things called nematodes. These are microscopic animals that live in thin films of water surrounding soil particles. So every soil particle has a thin film of water around it, and nematodes are living in that water. So what do? They take soil samples in cheesecloth and placed in a funnel filled with water. And then they do these tests on how many are there. Some dude called Behrman invented that. So it's called the Behrman funnel assembly. Then you have protozoa. Amoeba is a single-celled animal. It also has a soul. We also have a soul. So, but we are much more sophisticated than the amoeba, right? They are single cell. We are millions of cells. So all these things are there in the earth to cause the soil to produce what they are producing. Ultimately, what are they producing? They are producing crops for us. So he did some study and classified them like flat, raised, convex type of creatures. That's it. That is one other slide on soil science. Then there is soil mapping. So soil survey is a systematic examination, description, classification, and mapping of soils. So we recently did a soil survey. Where did we do that? Girish and Disha?
Arlington.
Arlington, yeah. So you had that fellow who came with some equipment in his hand with a small bucket, he said, I'll go into the back and take some samples. So what was he doing? He was doing a soil survey, right? US Department of Agriculture, USDA. So this is the picture that they create. Here you have clay, here you have silty loam, here you have this. So let me show you a final result of a soil survey that came from my property in Texas. So that is Harulas Maharaj's picture. I have him on my thing. These are all the people that I am contacting, like in Bonham, Texas, Development Service Director, how to construct mobile home or multifamily home, and water district. Where is that soil survey diagram? Okay, by the way, this is a very good picture. So you have a combination of mycorrhizae, rhizobacteria, and carbon dioxide rich soil. So they did a study with synthetic fertilizers on left side and organic fertilizers on the right side. You see, with synthetic fertilizers, the roots were very short. And with organic fertilizers, the roots were very well spread out. So where is my diagram? I think this is the best diagram I have so far. Yeah. So here they classify the land. The government classifies the land. The county government, Fannin County, Texas, and they'll say what you can grow in various parts of the soil, like that. They'll give you estimates of what can grow where. So all this is there. The science is there. We have to just put in the hard work. Yeah, this is the other thing. This is what we saw in the Redmond farm, Girish. Remember, they had these pipes underground. So these are called drain tiles. What happens is when rain comes, the soil becomes too much water. Too much water, roots cannot grow. So they dig these trenches and put these pipes so that, and then there'll be holes in these pipes so that it sucks all the water and then sends it out. Yeah, this is the file I was looking at for my property. So you see that the government has categorized. There is tin clay, frequently flooded area a little bit in my property on the extreme left, right? So there'll be 160-foot setback here because it's a wetland. And then this orange is Hayden-Ferris complex. So here, what can you grow? They've already said you can grow cotton, sorghum, Bermuda grass, no oats, but wheat. And then you come to blue, Houston black clay. Means dead. We cannot do anything here. We have to amend all this soil. And then HFC2. HFC2, we can grow these things again. Cotton length, there are scores also, right? So 45 is less than 100. So there are some scores. We have to understand what those scores are and appropriately grow crops there. I'm actually going to Dallas next week to inspect the property. And now Disha, Kirish, and I are all trained how to evaluate properties. So I'm going to go and see how this one looks compared to the ones we were looking here in Arlington and other places. You want to come and join me, Girish, for the survey?
To Dallas? Girish would love to, Prabhu.
I know it is difficult. I don't expect anybody to come that far. I was just joking. So yeah, this is how they do this analysis, right? What can grow where? That's a soil survey. So there are taxonomy classes, right? Coarse loamy, mixed, active, mesic type. There are various kinds of taxonomies. And then it will give you like this classification, A, P, BW, B into 1. Like that. And then you can draw like a topography map of what is what. Very easy. We have all done this in our engineering college. At least I've done it. Not all engineering colleges teach this stuff, but luckily mine taught all this stuff to me. You see this upper limit of the water table. So if you put a drain tile below, you can lower the water table. Too high of a water table is not good. Too much water is bad. Too little water is bad. So here are some soil maps by USDA. USDA has like mapped every inch of United States and he has given maps like that. So this is all like more detailed stuff around how you can classify the land, right? And then this is the final output. Just like I showed the output for my farm, this is for somebody else's farm. And now they give like scientific names, creep, slope, where the land suddenly bends down, fall phase when it's like rapidly coming down like that. And then this is the channel bed. We saw all these forms when we went to Arlington. Remember, there was the water bed where there's this, and then we had some area which would be frequently flooded. And then we saw some drops. All this, they just give some taxonomy to them. So drainage classes. Well drained means the roots grow all the way down. Whereas if you have mottled soil here, then the roots will not go all the way down. So mottled soil is the stopping, wherever the mottled soil is. So we need to prevent mottled soil, the conclusion, right? So as the mottled soil is going up, roots are getting stagnated there. And we saw the other picture, the organic fertilizer, the roots are going deeper. Synthetic fertilizer, they are staying shallow. So lesson is that you should go with organic fertilizer. And secondly, root systems. In order to preserve the soil from erosion, you should have different types of plants, not all one crop. Some roots will go deep, some roots will stay shallow, so that the land is protected, well protected. Anyway, drainage is a very big topic. Where water drains, right? Poorly drained, roots will only go till 6 inches. Moderately well drained, roots will go to 32 inches. Well drained, greater than 52 inches, like that. So here are some pictures. Geologists have gone and like when you dig a trench, right, you'll see these various layers. Then you can understand, oh, at what level am I? What level I have this kind of soil? So somebody like that Arlington person will go and dig deep and find out all these things for us. This is how the Texas soils are. They crack because of excessive clay. Cracking is a bad sign. Relative to a nickel. Relative to a nickel, this crack is pretty big, as you can see. So you are getting like soil 101 course all in 1 hour. So NSPK, the interaction of nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, and potassium is essential for growing crops. So we covered this picture earlier. Actually, I think this is what that acronym stands for, right? N is for nitrogen, P for phosphorus, S for sulfur. No. PSK, P for phosphorus, K for potassium, and S for sulfur. But there is something, this acronym called CHON PS. So we have to figure out what this is. Organic matter has CHON PS and minerals are PSK. So organic, that's why nitrogen is not actually a mineral, but it's an organic matter. That's why creating green manure from vetch or white clover will increase nitrogen in the soil. So here he becomes very scientific, how the nitrogen in the air gets fixed. It's called nitrogen fixation using legumes. So it talks about these various sulfites that are fixed in the soil. Yeah, so like a lot of science behind this. Chemical fixation of aluminum and manganese, hydrous oxides, lot of science. Okay, so questions on how to amend the soil. Everybody went to sleep. Nice class to go to sleep. You see this marshland, that's because there is high acid here. That's why you cannot grow anything. You can tell when you look at it, dirty soil. So pH of 7 is ideal in the middle point. Less is problem, more is problem. So if you see yellow, India is mostly neutral soil. And south of United States is mostly alkaline. North is mostly acidic. But not too acidic. If you're too acidic, you cannot grow crops. So if you have negative cations, roots are growing low. Positive cations, roots are going deeper. So you need a balance between the acidic and the basic. So soils have this innate nature to prevent changes, right? They resist increases in pH, and they resist decreases in pH. One is called reserve acidity, and second is buffering capacity. So you need a good combination of clay, humus. Humus is what? Anybody was paying attention? Where does humus come from?
Organic matter, right?
Yes, but can you be more specific?
It comes from plant matter, like the decaying of the plants.
Right. Specifically, we covered earlier that it comes from decaying of the bacteria. The bacteria also die. So it comes from their bodies, humus. We covered this in one of the other slides. Anyway, this is going too much into chemistry, but it will tell you what exactly is happening, saturation percentages and things like that. So all these factories are generating all these chemicals. So they have to be absorbed by these plants. So plants are acting as sinks. These are sources of pollution. Plants are sinks. Formation of acid rain and its impact on distant watersheds, right? So you may form these chemicals in a city, but they go and ruin the forests also. Soil acidification occurs and it accelerates the calcium and magnesium losses. So in the sensitive watersheds, there's a decline in forest health and aquatic ecosystems. So everything is connected. So by being a farmer, you're actually extending our life. Otherwise, we'll all kill ourselves pretty soon.
What's the relationship of manure and soil? Can we think of manure as a soil amendment, giving nutrients?
Okay, Disha just answered that question before, right? Yeah, it is.
Does the humus?
Yeah, it
That's the
is.
humus part.
It forms
Bacteria.
humus. It is the soil organic matter, SOM,
I see. Gotcha. Understood.
right? So in the 1930s and 40s, most of the central states like Illinois and what are the other states? Dakota, North Dakota, all those places, they could not produce any more grain. Then you saw something known as dust bowl. There was massive dust storms coming because wind would carry all the soil, which was useless, and then create a dust storm. Then what they did, they introduced lots of cows, grazing cows, and their manure created organic matter. So soil's life came back. So organic matter like legumes, that is called green manure, and then actual manure from animals is the best way to amend a soil. You don't have to do anything, just leave a bunch of cows and goats. Goats, what is the function of goats on a farm?
They eat the weeds.
Yes, we talked about it last time. They are weed eaters. So there are companies, if you have bad weeds on your property, you call them. They'll come with like 20, 30 goats. They will let the goats roam and eat all the weeds, and then they'll take the goats away. So yeah, there is a function for everything. That's why to amend, what you need to do, Sheshdev, on your property, you should have more cows. Let them poop a lot. You have what, 5 cows right now?
They were there. I don't know what happened.
What happened?
I mean, those were like cows who had just roamed and they were staying in the farm. I don't see them in the photos, so they must have gone back to the previous owners.
Okay, that's likely.
Yeah, right. Need to get more cows.
Yeah, and first year they say put one crop and don't harvest it, just leave it so that it decays and becomes organic matter. My father used to do this. He used to grow one kind of plant, I mean peanuts of course, but one kind of plant, and then he would just cut and leave it on the ground. So that mixes with the clay and it becomes soil. So this goes into a lot of physics, microwave radiation, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this is all about sunlight falling and how the temperature changes. And because there's a window, right? Not you cannot grow anything. You can throughout the year. There'll be spring crops, summer crops, fall crops. That's it. No winter crops. Winter is a rest time for Earth. So soil temperature in harvested and bedded area is between 16 degrees and 20 degrees Celsius. Whereas in the forest, it is only 11 to 13. So temperature is also different. Cultivated area, temperatures are higher. Forested area, temperatures are lower. So that kind of talks about this whole global warming problem, right? Because you are cultivating more and more land, what's going to happen? You're overusing Mother Earth. Most of the biggest problem is they cultivate more and then they feed the slaughter animals. So that's a very inefficient way of consuming grains, because the animal will take like 500 kgs of grain to produce X amount of meat in its body. And that's a very inefficient way. So if people become vegetarian, then global warming problem goes away. You can feed 500 kgs of grain to a lot of people, whereas that meat is only eaten by like 10 or 15 people. So right there, it makes sense not to do that, not to consume meat. Okay, so any questions? We'll stop there.
It's a very eye-opening lesson, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm putting in a lot of effort to do all these things. Hopefully somebody will learn from me and then go implement it. Okay, see you all next week.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.